Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode 300 of the EdTech Bites podcast. If you are a returning listener, I'd like to thank you for keeping the EdTech Bites podcast as a part of your PLN and sticking around, especially for 300 episodes. And if you are new to the show, make sure that you subscribe. And thank you for adding the EdTech Bites podcast as a part of your PLN. Ladies and gentlemen, this is it. 300. 9 years later. Crazy. Got my chocolate, peanut butter, chocolate protein smoothie to make sure that I'm hydrated while keeping the calorie count relatively low. So what do we have in store, ladies and gentlemen? Episode 300. Episode 300 is going to be a celebratory episode. I'm going to discuss kind of like the show, the history behind the show, the why behind the show, some of the truths that I've learned throughout these 9 years and 300 episodes, and the future, as well as some thank yous, ladies and gentlemen. Just sink it in. 300 episodes. So, I don't know if you guys heard that. My throat made a quick noise, but let's go back in time 9 years to EdTech 2017. EdTech 2017 took place in San Antonio, Texas at the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center down by the Riverwalk. And I was there. My district had sent me, and I had already had a discussion with Edward Zelarayan. He's a friend of mine. Haven't talked to him in quite some time, though. So, Edward, if you're watching or listening, I thank you. I'll get into the thank you in that in a bit. But you know the discussions that we've had. Edward used to work for Nearpod, and our district had purchased Nearpod. So, he had done some trainings and always, was on a call with us and our team and so on and so forth, and kind of helped us implement Nearpod kind of a district-wide. So him and I were discussing at one of our PD events, kind of in between sessions. We sat down and we're just chatting, and he asked me, like, hey, what do you want to do in the future? Like, for lack of a better statement, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And we were having this discussion. We were thinking, big picture, what if? And I told him, you know what I've always wanted to do, man? I've always wanted to start a podcast. And we started getting into that discussion. And this was the beginning of 2017, maybe like March of 2017, April. Actually, it was May. It was May 2017 because that's when we did like our end of the year PD. And I brought that discussion home and I had it with my wife, and I don't know about you guys, but I have this like paralysis by analysis thing where I want to do something and then I start looking at what it takes and is it going to be good enough? Oh my God, what do I need? But what if? Oh my gosh, they're doing it this way over there. What am I going to do it here? How's it going to look? What is it going to cost? What do I need to do? Who do I learn from? So I started having paralysis by analysis. And then my wife, I'll never forget, my wife and I were getting ready to go to bed and we were laying down, and she said, just shut up and start it. Like, just do it. She used a little bit more colorful language, but in a nutshell, she said, stop talking about it and do something about it. So I started coming up with ideas. I knew I wanted to do EdTech. I knew I wanted to talk education, but I also knew, being a native foodie, that I also wanted to incorporate food, and I didn't know how. And then it just hit me. What if I break bread with guests and we talk about education in the most primal way possible, which is breaking bread together? And I had that idea. And lo and behold, EdTech came around like a month later. I had purchased some equipment. I want to say it was the 27th of June, 2017. And I had reached out to Edward and I told him, man, thanks for that conversation. I bought some gear and I know that we're going to be at EdTech together. You're going to be doing your thing. I'm going to be doing my thing. But man, I'd love to grab some lunch with you and press record and record a conversation with you. And we did that. And that is episode 1, ladies and gentlemen, 2017. 9 years later, here we are, 300 episodes later. And that's how it got started. Now, the why is because I had been consuming podcasts for quite some time prior to 2017, listened to a lot of music and hip hop podcasts and comedy podcasts and some education ones. And I remember driving and thinking, I'm pretty sure I could do this. I could do this and put my own unique spin on it. make it a little bit more niche to me and what I have to bring to the table. And that was kind of the why. And it turned into me connecting with people. Episode 1 was recorded at ISTE. Episode 2 with Brian Smith was recorded at ISTE literally the next day. And that dropped, I think, if not the next day, maybe 2 days after ISTE. And I started connecting with people. And then at the time, I wanted to connect with other individuals, but ISTE was over. I wasn't under the same roof with them. I wasn't at the same zip code as them. So I had to do some virtual stuff. And at that time, many of the podcasters were doing virtual stuff. And I started connecting with people through, at the time, Google Meet, and connecting and recording. I had this like intricate system with inputs and outputs connected to my little Zoom recorder. And then I would take that SD card and then do my thing. So I would do that. And then after quite some time, I realized that it didn't feel as good as those conversations I had in person at ISTE. And that's not to say I had bad guests. Trust me, no guest that I've had on, I would consider a bad guest. We had great conversations, but being that we're virtual, if they don't have the right equipment, if we're cutting each other off, you know how it is when you're like on a call and one person speaks over another and there's echo and there's that weird stutter and you don't know when to interject. And sometimes there could be that like awkward silence because who's going to talk next? In person, that doesn't really happen. There's a vibe. There's energy. And I was missing that. And then that's when I realized I need to go back to the in-person podcasting. I needed to be doing that more. So then I started like podcasting at conferences. I was taking my equipment to conferences as it was because I was doing sessions on how to start a podcast and my podcasting journey, what to do, and also quite as more important, or what not to do as a podcaster. So then I started taking my equipment and I thought, well, why don't I just like break it out and start recording with people in the lunch area, in the expo hall in the very back, or off in the media room because I had a media pass. So then I started recording and then it felt good again. And once again, not to say that the people who I had virtually were not great guests. It's just that the energy is different. And you know how it is. If you've ever been in a faculty meeting or a staff meeting, virtually versus in person, it's different. You kind of tune out at times when it's virtual. You start doing other stuff. The same can happen on a call. So I started getting reinvigorated podcasting at conferences, and then started connecting with more people. And then people started kind of knowing me as the in-person podcaster at conferences. So that was what I would do. And I still do that to this day. I love doing that. People say, you actually travel with all your equipment and then some, because I always travel with more than enough. If I'm going to be recording with 2 guests, then I take 3 mics just in case. And I take 4 cables and I take multiple SD cards because stuff's going to give out. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So, I'd always overpack and then I would, take everything with me. I still do it to this day. And people always tell me like, why do you do that? Because I love connecting with people and having conversations with people. So that's kind of the why also. And, over these 300 episodes and these 9 years, I've had some truths. And there's like 3 big truths that I've come across in my journey, my podcast journey, my content journey, if you want to call it that. You're not a podcaster, man. You're a content creator, whatever. One of those truths is that imposter syndrome is a real thing, ladies and gentlemen. I could tell you that from experience. Like I said a little bit earlier, I've always consumed podcasts for quite some time, a lot of comedy and music and pop culture and things like that. And I found myself kind of saying a lot of the same statements that they would say, putting in maybe a little pieces of the show that resembled their similar pieces of the show. And then I realized that I was kind of trying to copy other people. And it felt disingenuous. It didn't feel right. So then I had to take a step back and say, okay, I need to do things my way. I need to keep going back to my why and my what and my how. So after kind of doing my own, what would you call it? Kind of like my own internal audit, I kind of was able to shelf the imposter syndrome. Got that out of the way. But then came another beast. And we've all dealt with this one, ladies and gentlemen. A lack of consistency. There's a lack of consistency specifically because you're trying to make something perfect. If you've ever had to co-present with somebody or create a slide deck with someone and they're a perfectionist and you're the one who's like, let's just get the content. We can always fix that after, or people aren't even going to notice that little corner of the slide. It doesn't matter. Like, let's just focus on the big content and what we're going to say, not necessarily every single visual and every single little portion of that Bitmoji classroom. Ugh, just saying that makes me sick to my stomach. But I was not as consistent as I wanted to be, as I should have been. Technically, my show drops once every 2 weeks. And there were times where I would hit a month and a half. And there were times where I realized that I wasn't on schedule. And then I had to take a step back and say, all this crazy editing that I'm trying to do and all these gaps that I'm trying to delete. And at the time, there was no AI software or services that I would pay for at the time that were able to do that for me. So I was having to take out all these little clips, all these all these all these little teeth sucks and all that. I'd have to, manually take care of all those. And I realized that it's about being consistent, not necessarily perfect. So I took a step back, realized it, called myself out on it and said, focus on being consistent. Content is king or queen. So I wanted to make sure that I did that. So the imposter syndrome, I was able to put that on the shelf. Perfection, threw that in the cupboard, in the spice rack with that one spice that's sitting back there rock hard because you never use it. And then there was that third truth that I had felt a lot. I noticed and I realized wasn't necessarily specific to podcast and content creation, but just kind of life in general. And that is the peaks and valleys. In my podcast journey and my content creation journey, I've had many, many peaks and valleys. There's times where I've got a bunch of episodes banked, edited, scheduled, ready to go. I don't even have to think about them. They're just going to happen. And then there's times where I'm editing and publishing on the spot, and I was able to make the 2-week mark or what have you. And I'm over that hump. All right, I get a reset and I don't have to do this again for another 2 weeks or publish another episode. And then there's times where I'm trying to fill gaps. Like, I've got these episodes that are going to drop, but if I'm going to keep on the same schedule, I got to record another one and drop it on this date. I don't feel like it. I'm not feeling too good. The kids got games, or we've got this event that we've got to go to, or what have you. And it started feeling like homework. And we've all hit that. If you're a teacher, you have peaks, you have valleys. If you're an administrator, you have peaks and valleys. If you're at the district level, if you're a paraprofessional, a bus driver, a cafeteria worker, custodial staff, anything, you have peaks and valleys. And I realized that it's noticing those peaks and valleys, knowing what to do when you're at the peak, try to stay there as much as possible, and recognizing what could potentially put you in a valley so you can notice it. And then if you're in one of those valleys, in one of those ruts, in one of those slumps, in one of those funks, recognizing it and realizing what you need to do to get out of it, especially up here, because it starts up here. So the peaks and valleys is real. So those are like the 3 big truths that I came across in my 9-year journey of doing this, my 300 episodes of doing this. Imposter syndrome is real. You got to be consistent over perfect. And number 3, you're going to have peaks and valleys. What are you going to do about the valleys when you're in them? Now, those are kind of the realizations that I've had. You've heard the why, you've heard the what, you've heard the how. Let's talk about the future, ladies and gentlemen. The future of this show. Product placement, perfect. You're looking at it. I'm in my den. This is like my home office. I've got my studio lights set up, my microphone, my recorder off camera, my camera. Going to be upgrading lenses, so be on the lookout for that. But I'm going to be doing a lot more solo episodes, ladies and gentlemen. And also, as far as content, I'm going to be kind of moving past the AI dominated conversations. Everyone's having conversations about AI. You can't not talk about AI. It's impossible. But it's not the only thing we can talk about. So I'm going to take a more human-centered teaching and pedagogical approach. Mr. Scott, if you're watching or listening, I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, if that's even a word, but I'm going to be focusing more on human-centered teaching and connections rather than just AI. Now, going back about the solo episodes, you're going to see a lot more solo episodes. That's not to say I'm not going to have guests on the show and that I'm still going to be taking myself to conferences. As a matter of fact, I've got 9 episodes that are going to be dropping from now till November from ISTE 2026, shows that are brought to you courtesy of TWT Audio as well as WeVideo. So those episodes are going to be dropping. Those were live on the expo floor. Those are pretty much ready to drop. And in between those episodes, you're going to see a lot of this because this is what I love to do. I have a space for it now, and you're going to be seeing and hearing a lot of this. In other words, I'm cutting the fat, ladies and gentlemen. See what I did? Figuratively and, oh gosh, I can't think of the term. Really, like in reality. In 2024, my son bought a scale. I want to say it was like March or February 2024. He bought a scale for their bathroom, and I stepped on it. And I had always been so afraid of scales because that number just didn't feel good, especially when I was a lot heavier. And he bought a scale. I stepped on it and I saw a number. It's been a little bit over almost 2.5 years. And I have been able to lower that number by 100 pounds with a lot of hard work, dedication, and consistency over perfection, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, and I still have peaks and valleys even in my weight loss and health journey, but it's all about being consistent. And I saw that number like in February of 2024, and it was a big, ugly number. I had a doctor appointment, and it was still a big, ugly number. And then come ISTE 2024, at that time, only my boys and I went to Denver for that conference. So it was me, my 2 boys. My wife decided to stay back, kind of take care of the home front here and do what she wanted and had to do here. And so it's just me and the boys. And we did a lot of walking at Denver. Why? Because Denver's hot, but it's not super hot like San Antonio. So we were actually able to walk around and do stuff in the daytime, which was really nice. And I was getting like maybe 15, 20,000, at times like 22, 23,000 steps a day, which was pretty awesome. And then when we came back from ISTE, I had a follow-up doctor appointment and I had shed a couple pounds and I saw it and I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. And literally the next day I got up in the morning, and this is after coming back home, having my doctor appointment. And then I went on a walk that next morning. And that particular route that I took, which I still take on occasion, was 2.74 miles to in front of our community and back. And I took our dog Luna with me. And I did that. And then the next day I did the same thing. The next day I did the same thing. And it became our routine for Luna and I. And we did that over and over. And I stepped on the scale a little bit more and saw that number just kind of go down by a little bit every day. Not every day, but consistently. And that really, really just triggered something in my brain and it turned it on. And I was able to put my body into fat loss mode, and I was focused and determined like you wouldn't believe. I mean, if you see pictures of me from 2024 till now, it's literally 100 pounds. So when I say cutting the fat for the future of the show, I mean cutting the fat figuratively and literally. That's what I was looking for, literally. So I'm making sure that I cut the fluff out, both in life and on the show. And the reason is because I'm training for a marathon, and I'm looking forward to a marathon, not a race. Literally and figuratively, I'm training for a 10K, and I'm training my work ethic for a marathon of a show. I don't want to be, I hate this word, viral and hot, but I don't want that for the show for a month and then diminish. I want consistent shows, consistent content throughout the next 300 episodes. So I'm looking at this like a marathon, not a race. And in order to do that, you got to cut the fat. So that's the future of the show. You're looking at it, like I said. If it's not an episode I recorded at a conference, it's going to be here in person. Me. If somebody wants to connect virtually, I can connect with you at a conference. If you're in the San Antonio area, if I'm doing something in your neck of the woods, I always take my equipment with me. We could do something like that, but I'm not going to be jumping on a Zoom call or a call like that with someone anytime soon, unless it's something special and out of the ordinary. But no, I'm not going to be doing that. When I started the show, it was not for virtual. It was for in-person, with the perspective of breaking bread with people and having real conversations and interrupting each other at times in real situations. Not with background noise, not with humming, and not with bad audio. And this is not a shot at any virtual podcaster. There's a lot of the people who I have connections with and work with in that do virtual podcasts, and they're great. That's not a shot. If you take it as a shot, that's not my intent. But I want to make sure that I'm personal, not virtual. So that's the future of the show, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's get into the thank yous. 300 episodes, there's a lot of people to thank. If you've ever subscribed, if you've ever watched a clip, if you've ever double tapped on a clip, if you've ever shared the clip to your story, if you've ever shared it with a friend, if you've ever sent a link of the show to a friend, a colleague down the hallway, an admin, if you've ever included it in an email, if you've ever subscribed to the newsletter, if you're a current subscriber, if you're not a current subscriber, edtechbites.com/newsletter, if you've ever sponsored the show, if you've ever reached out about a speaking opportunity, if I've ever spoken at your conference, spoked at a conference or something, or keynoted something, I'd like to thank you. And all of that came about because of this. And also, it's still kind of weird for me to say this, but ladies and gentlemen, I'm a published author. 9 years ago, I never thought that this was going to be a thing, but I am a damn published author. And that's because of things like this, the show, being consistent, pushing through those valleys, riding those peaks until I realize, all right, let's take a step back and let's do something else. And that something else might put me in a valley, but only through hard work and perseverance am I going to get out of that just a little bit stronger and better with content. So I was able to write a book. Big shout out to Matt Joseph and the entire X Factor EDU publishing team and the group of authors out there. Is a great group of people. Connect with us, buy all our books by all means on any of the platforms that's sold, and check us out. Check us out at the conferences when we do our book signings and that. But it's such a blessing to be able to say that, and all that came out because of the show, of the content. So thank you to anyone who's purchased a book, given me the opportunity to speak somewhere, reached out about speaking somewhere, checked out a newsletter, subscribed to the newsletter, forwarded an email, watched the clip, watched a YouTube video that I have, pushed it out to people, added it to their own newsletter, come up to me at a conference and thanked me, or said, hey, I listened to the show. I watched, some clips and episodes. I love when you spoke about this, or I love that recipe. Thank you. Thank you for all of that. I'm super appreciative of that. And the biggest thank yous I have to say are to my family, my wife and kids. They have heard me say some ideas like you wouldn't believe out in public, and to them, like, hey, what do you guys think about this? What do you think about that? And they push me to the places that I need to be and the heights that I need to go. Food tours and things like that. If you've ever been on a food tour, if you've ever sponsored a food tour, thank you. I love doing that stuff. Trivia nights and social events. I mean, it's grown because of what I do and the content that I'm able to put out thanks to you who consume it. So a big shout out to you guys, a big shout out to my family, my wife, Erica, the two boys, Gabriel, Sebastian, the young men that you've become. You guys were, I mean, if you go back and listen to episode 1 and you hear the intro, those are my two boys. They're now 20 and 18. So just think about that for a little bit. And I can't believe that I'm at 300, ladies and gentlemen. Looking forward to 300 more, 400, 500, however many I can get out there before I pass the torch. But there's a lot to reflect on. There's a lot to be thankful for, and there's a lot to look forward to. So the future of the show, you're looking at it. And while you're looking at it, take a look at this home studio, because it's going to be changing very, very soon. It's going to be getting an upgrade, and you're going to be seeing new things and new lights and things like that. So be on the lookout for that, and maybe even some more new information from me. So to 300 episodes, ladies and gentlemen, to every guest I've ever had on the show, thank you. Whether it be virtual, whether it was in person, if I met you at a restaurant here in San Antonio, if I picked you up from the airport or picked you up somewhere because you were in town and we met and we recorded something, thank you. If you wanted to connect with me through Zoom or Google Meet or anything because you couldn't make it or do something, thank you. Thank you for your insight and all that you have to contribute. If I broke bread with you at a conference, thank you. If you sponsored this show, thank you. If we've ever shaken hands, if we've ever had a conversation of any sort, thank you. And I cannot stop thanking you for the past, for the present, and for continuing to be a subscriber and a supporter, because I'm a supporter of you in your educational journey as well. We never stop learning. The second we stop learning is the second that we no longer progress. So here's to 300 episodes, ladies and gentlemen. My protein, chocolate, peanut butter, protein smoothie. You can find the recipe on my website. You can check that out. And I got a video on it as well. But that's it, ladies and gentlemen. 300 episodes. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. Catch me at a conference. Catch me outside, ladies and gentlemen. Buen provecho, and thank you.